Hello. So today I wanted to talk about fear and how it is my least and most favorite feeling of all. Throughout my life, I've always been accompanied by fear, and I guess everybody is. When I was a kid, one of the things that I remember the most was screwing up the first 4 or 5 notes that I played when we opened in a concert with the band I used to have. And that I was able to, let's say, split from those mistakes and from that fear because I was running against it. And I kind of use that in every aspect of my life as a way of escaping fear. But as years went by, I started to ask myself, what am I really running away from? And though fear has a lot of layers and meanings, and maybe they have deeper meanings than the one I'm going to talk about, for me in everyday life, fear means fear of failure, fear of making a mistake, or of making the wrong choice. And the more I thought about it, I started to realize that it is because our world is too far complex for anyone to have under control. Anyone that tells you that they have everything under control is pretty much lying to you. They have the illusion of control, which is the second best thing. But the world is far too complex for that. And because of it, we're confronted with uncertainty. So it's a question about order and chaos, or safety and uncertainty. So when you think about it, fear presents itself when we're uncertain of what's happening or what we're going to do about a certain situation. If you're walking through a super nice, safe neighborhood, you're not thinking about a lot of things, or you don't have a high stress level, or you're not afraid, because you know that the situation is under control. You've mapped out the potential dangers, and they're not a lot. If you imagined yourself lost in the woods or in the jungle, the situation is completely opposite. You don't know where you are, you don't know what's going to happen. So you're not only stressed, but you're also afraid. But the underlying idea is the same. Fear is a response to uncertainty. And the interesting thing about it is that that's not a bad thing, but we've learned to think that it is a bad thing. So this uncertainty creates the fear, the physical response of fear in our bodies. That's why when we do something for the first time, there's an element of fear in it. But as a culture, we've learned to shy away or push away the negative aspects of life. We tend to be a society that likes to just see the bright side of things, or the positive aspect of it. And in those terms, fear is something that we're supposed to reject, and that's where the entire confusion comes in. Fear is only a response to uncertainty, but we add layers to that sensation by thinking that we're not supposed to feel it. So if you think about pretty much all the mediocre or bad, or sometimes even okay movies about heroes that we learn so much about, at least unconsciously, they tend to have an superhuman bravery to them. The coolest movies are action movies, at least, are portrayed by human characters, humans that you can relate to. It is a sign of our times that we're supposed to be superhuman, or that at least that's the type of model that we're going after, like a super idealistic version of what we're supposed to be, a cartoonish version of what we're supposed to be. So it's not that it's done on purpose, but our culture, since it tends to shy away from the negative pole of life, of existence, we've tried to portray bravery as a positive, and it is a positive trait. But in order to do that, we've forgotten about the fact that in order for bravery to exist, fear has to exist with it. If not, it's just recklessness. If you imagine yourself walking through a mountain and climbing a mountain and walking through a dangerous ledge, if you don't have fear there, it's not bravery that you're having. It's an unawareness of the situation that you're in, and to a certain degree, you're being naive about it. So now the probable response of some of you would be like, well, I'm not going to be afraid of it. because that's a negative thing, or we think it's a negative thing. But it's not that we should crumble under fear. That fear is something that makes us a jitter. On the contrary, it is making us understand exactly where we are and what we have to do in order to be safe. The qualities that we relate fear with tend to stem from that negative association that we have with the feeling. Meaning that those jittering qualities, that insecurity that arises with it, comes from our body trying to fight against it, trying to fix a sensation that shouldn't be happening in the first place. And it's because of that we're so confused when we feel such a thing, because we think that we're not supposed to feel it. Or that if we're feeling it, that we should judge ourselves from feeling it, because it's something that we shouldn't be going through. And that whole structure sets us up for an entire confusing way to live. I used to think that there were only a certain amount of options in terms of fear. I thought that either you had to run away from it to be faster than it, in the sense that you're escaping it, that you should live under the control of fear, or that you should live a safe life. But there's an old saying that says an absolutely safe life is an absolute still life, meaning that there's no flavor in the things that are safe. But how do we relate then to fear? If those are our only options, then we're kind of fucked, because we cannot do anything about it. And it's almost like a shadow that we're supposed to kind of like outweigh, like a cloud that follows you. But there's a way to live outside of that, and it's if you own fear. I guess the best way for me to explain it is using a movie, which is The Dark Knight Rises, and it's a famous movie by Christopher Nolan, and in this one, the main character, Bruce Wayne, Batman, fails to defeat Bane, the antagonist, which is the embodiment of terror or fear. And this is because Bruce Wayne as a character has lost the will to live. And this symbolizes that without a will to live, you're not able to stand up to fear or terror or the uncertainty that life implies. So Bane breaks him, and he goes down to this prison. It's kind of like a well sort of prison, an open-ended one that you go down into. And there, Bane explains to him that this is the worst sort of prison because it's an open-ended one, meaning that there's hope for you to escape from it. But that pretty much nobody does that. Once he's in there, he tries to recover and then escape from that place. But he fails to do it. That is until he learns two things, which is the whole point of this example. The first thing is that he has to escape without using a lifeline, meaning like a safety net, symbolized by a rope that he uses in order to protect himself in the case that he falls. And the other one, which is related to the first one, is that without a safety net, fear finds a way back in your life. And that fear actually brings up the will to live. Therefore, when he climbs and he makes the leap of faith, which of course symbolizes trusting in yourself, without a safety net, he's able to do what most people can't, and he escapes and rises, which is the whole motif of the movie. So what Christopher Nolan or Jonathan Nolan, his brother, are trying to explain, at least for me in this movie, or at least in that segment of the movie, is that you're stronger by owning your fear or by integrating fear back into your life, instead of having this cartoonish version of yourself where you're not supposed to have fear, or that you never feel fear. Because there's a psychological trait that arises when you include it in your life, which is understanding that you're on the ledge of something, and in order to reach that which you want to get at, that you need to have trust in yourself, and then you need to believe in what you're doing. But in order to do that, you have to accept that you're afraid, because that uncertainty of will you be able to do it or not naturally comes up. It's not a mistake that is arising. It's obvious that it's arising, that is happening. I'm using arising way too much. But the thing is that it's not that I learned that from the movie, but in my life, I used to have a safe life and a safe job and a safe structure, and I left it because I wanted to try a real thing. I didn't want the safety net. Because for me, at least, this doesn't have to be for everybody. At least for me, that sort of life was a prison, like death in life. But the thing that I lacked was the understanding of fear. So I was reckless. And I lived trying to deny that fear was the most important thing that I could carry with me. And life did bring me down, and I did have to go through a lot of things in order to understand that the only way to actually become stronger and do the things and dare to do the things that you want to do, the quote-unquote leap of faith that is required of you, you have to stop running away from fear, and you have to make it your own. Understand that it is yourself. And in that way, you become much more powerful than you ever were. So it is possible to live with fear and make you uncomfortable. It's not that because you understand that suddenly you can do anything, or that you will never fail yourself, or that you will never have shortcomings, or that life itself will push you down, or that things will not pan out in the way that you thought they were, or that even if you made the best of your efforts, it wasn't enough. But it means that you understand that even if that happens, you can stand up again and try again, that there's no problem in failing, and there's no problem in having fear, and that there's no worse action than the one that you don't make when you know you want to do one. So I live with fear as a weird companion. It's uncomfortable as hell, but it tells me where I want to go, because it makes me realize that I feel way better when I'm on the other side of it than when I'm not. For example, doing this is highly uncomfortable for me, but I'm not going to do it because I feel uncomfortable. It would be way worse to just have it as an idea in my head. And I think that's the point of everything. We will never feel happy if we don't do the things that are hard for us to do. And that includes fear. So yeah, that's it. So thanks for watching, and yeah, I'll be back. And I guess I have to say to subscribe or something. Yeah, bye.